Beginning in the 1970s as a mail-order catalog, the Surfcaster has long been known as the source for hard-to-find surf fishing gear, and I've been personally shopping with them since the 1980s. They offer honest advice and the best recommendations regardless of your experience level, and will tailor their suggestions to what you actually need.
As you would expect from a business that's been serving the surfcasting community for 50 years, their prices are competitive and delivery is always quick and secure. They want you to have the best possible experience in the surf and have the knowledge and inventory to put the right gear in your hands to make that happen. So check out the Surfcaster at www.thesurfcaster.com, and if you're in the area, stop into their brand new brick and mortar store in Shelton, Connecticut. Welcome back to the Surfcast Podcast. Today, we have a even more informal format for you. We've gotten a lot of feedback that says that you guys like it when our conversations are casual. Feels like you're just sitting here talking with us, hanging out. And we like that too. And that's actually what we prefer when we listen to podcasts as well. So I started talking about something to Toby moments ago, and we were going to do something different. And he said, stop. Let's just record this as a podcast. And then we talked about some stuff, and he said, oh crap, I already can't remember what you wanted to talk about. So
I've already forgotten the subject.
I've already forgotten the subject, so this is great. We're just going to go into this really informally. Mm-hmm. But it's something that we both have thought about a lot. I promise that. So, Toby, the thing that I asked you was, what is your favorite part of catching a striped bass? What's your favorite part? And now I'm going to do a couple of disclaimers, and I'm going to disqualify. That was the word I was looking for. Disqualify a few things. I'm not talking about like being out at night. I'm not talking about like, swimming in a wetsuit. I'm talking about the process of catching a striped bass. I don't mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be, when it's on the line, but something within that realm. But one thing I will say for myself that I'd like to lead with is I hear all the time, this is especially true of people who are sort of just starting out or don't fish very much. And it usually shines a light for me on what level of seriousness you are and where you are in your career of surfcasting. And that is the tug is the drug. The tug is the drug. The tug is definitely not the drug for me. And I think, and this isn't to be derogatory if it is for you, because I think for some guys, I even fished with someone who I know that's a much larger component of why they fish than me. And I consider them pretty serious. But I think that as you progress, the tug becomes less and less and less important. And some people don't want to progress, and they sort of get to the point where they're like, this is good enough, and that's great, and you just hang out there and live the rest of your life in ecstasy, right? It's just do your thing when it comes to surf fishing. You don't want to take it any further, and you don't need to, and that's cool, and the tug of the drug maybe is the important part. But I hear that a lot, and I think that the danger of tug of the drug is if you're only about the catching and the reeling it in, when things get tough, you give up. And if you don't have other reasons to keep you out there, you fade away. And I think this happens a lot with anglers these days in particular, because there are roads to catch fish more easily. Like you can kind of jump on the bandwagon, get in with a group, learn stuff as social, and kind of quickly catch some bigger fish. And it's great. And then you go through a week or a month or a little longer with no fish, and that feels really alien because you've never had the experience of failing early on, like we did, Toby, or certainly I did, long time.
I do lately.
Yeah, and 2025, good point. And so that if you're relying on that and you've never known anything else, it goes away and you lose it. That was 4 minutes of me just saying some stuff, but I gave you time to think anyways. I won't give away mine yet. And I also want to share what I've heard somebody else say. So I have a few different things to say, but how about you get us started with that? What's your favorite part? Maybe you have more than one.
Well, I want to just quickly go back, like what you're saying with that, the tug of the drug.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Sorry.
That's one of the things, it's funny, like talking about that. Before I ever went tuna fishing, everybody was like, oh, you're going to hook a tuna, you're going to forget about striped bass, and just, they're going to be nothing, and you move on. I hate that part of tuna fishing. The long battle, the fish go, that part is what I don't enjoy there. And the same thing was said tarpon fishing to me. You're going to fall in love with tarpon because of the way that they fight. That's like the least attractive part about all of it. Like that's not what it does for, personal. Again, this is for me. Others may feel differently, but that was definitely never a thing for me, because comparing it to the other species that when I first started, like I said, people were like, you're just going to be like, screw striped bass. They're nothing. They're worthless after you've done these other things. And it really changed. It didn't change anything. I guess maybe I appreciated the striped bass more, that it was like in that level manageable. It makes me appreciate, some of the smaller fish, other species. That's not even a component of why I do it. There's definitely far more. I think, I'm not sure if it's necessarily exactly what you were trying to get at with the question, but just the catching and being in the whole, I guess there's almost like in my mind, a historical culture of the striped bass, being involved in the process, the whole thing, from whether it's making rods to lures to putting them to use, because I'm a big fan of a lot of the history of the surf fishing striped bass, the story of where it came from the, the old days of the bass stands to the fishing clubs to all the books that I've read, my collection of books, my vintage, like I think the biggest attraction for me, because at times it sure as hell isn't the catching, because that ain't happening quite a bit. Being a part of that history is a huge part of it to me. That the figures that have been involved in it historically, and being a part of that community today that's still involved in it. That I that's probably one of the bigger pieces of it for me, one of the bigger attractions day to day that keeps me going and sticking with it, not saying screw this, I'm just gonna be a trout guy or a tuna guy or a sea bass guy.
Yeah, I think you're sort of getting to this, and sort of not, I guess, but I do think, no, you are. I do think that there's something sort of intangible about surf fishing for striped bass, because it does feel, because I haven't caught, oh boy, I've seen some recent photos of Pete down in Florida, the tarpon he's catching, dear Lord. And, I've seen some of the ones that Alberto's gotten and other people, and I certainly haven't got anything even remotely. Those fish could eat the fish that I've caught, basically. But I've experienced tarpon, and I love them, and they're, like, superior in every way. But then there's something about fishing for striped bass. And I think that this, again, shines a light on that it isn't just the tug is the drug. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why... I think it's something about, it's the total pursuit, like you're talking about, this isn't my favorite thing, by the way. I'm not giving away what my favorite thing is yet.
Well, I'm saying this is a big piece of it for me. I know we can get into some physical aspects too, but this is what jumped into mind at first.
I think that's also why you and I enjoy small stream trout, because there's something like a little bit intangible about that, or something, there's something special about it that goes beyond all the pieces, that when it all comes together, the amalgamation of it all, the mixture, it's superior than the parts. And I think that's true striped bass. You feel this way about tog, though, too. You've told me. You feel pretty strongly.
Yeah, but that's more of like, there's not the historical tradition. Like people targeting blackfish, tautog, like it was it was really considered just a food fish until really very recent modern times.
Yes.
Well, yeah, like in the time span of just me targeting them. When I caught my first dedicated blackfish off a boat, it was a meat fish for me, for everyone around, for the whole culture. And there was probably guys that did it for more than that. Now, I mean, yeah, they're one of my favorite fish to eat, but I'm just as happy like a striped bass, letting the thing go. And I've gotten, like, my son Aiden, same thing. Like, he doesn't, when he first caught a few, he wanted to eat them. You're young, getting into it. Like, now he's cool letting them go. He almost, Dad, can we let this go? He asks, and some of the guys that I fish with, I've definitely converted. So there is something there. That's, but that's different too, because again, I mean, we're looking at less than a 20 years history on that. Whereas, like we say with the striped bass, you can go back I mean, hell, I did some. I can't remember if I think I told you, I did the little classes for Aiden's school this spring, and
Oh,
I was
yeah.
researching. The first school system in the United States was funded by striped bass. That goes back to colonial times. So like, there's that history that you're involved in, and I mean, there's nights more so lately catching less. I will be on a rock, and something like that'll pop into my head. Like, how many striped bass were caught since Europeans came to the U.S. and then natives who were there before, like, did they fish off of these spots? And granted, they did the same with, other species, but I that kind of stuff jumps into my head lately, like, which is, again, furthering that connection, that, like, I'm a part of that storyline that's evolving still. I bet if you added it up, more striped bass were caught from the surf last year on plastic swimmers than any other plug. Probably even more than bucktails. The reason is simple. For generations, the plastic swimmer has proven to be a versatile, effective, and affordable fish catching machine.
And that's where the new Hogy OG Swimmer comes in. Unlike most of the other modern swimmers that all look and act alike, the OG Swimmer brings together a traditional design with modern enhancements to offer anglers with a unique and highly effective swimming plug unlike anything else currently on the market. With a unique wobbling action, it moves like an injured baitfish, and it's a large profile, chunky and tubular, and measuring in at 7 inches. Plus, with a downturn line tie, the OG Swimmer stays shallow, making it ideal for surf anglers.
All of this is tied together in an extra hard body that's through-wired and decked out with VMC hooks and a hand-tied bucktail teaser. And just like the Hogy needlefish, you won't find a rear hook on this lure, which is better for the fish, better for your hands, and easier on your wallet. This is all part of the Hook One platform, as well as Hogy's new core philosophy, quality for today, conservation for tomorrow. To find out more about this mission, and to pick up one of these premium OG swimmers, be sure to check out www.hogylures.com.
So I totally agree with you on the solidarity of feeling like we're like part of something when you're out there with the surf fishing for striped bass. It feels like there's like a real rich culture. But that's, for me, sort of more, I'm using lots of vocabulary today, but I'm going to keep going anyways. But I used amalgamation earlier. But again, I feel it's very nebulous. It's too diffuse. I want to pick something that's very specific. And for me, and this is going to be the focus of an upcoming column in Surfcasters Journal that you're going to want to read because I think I did a good job with it. But for me, the best part about catching the striped bass is the anticipation. It's the anticipation of when is the hit going to come, how big is it going to be, and what's going to happen. Once that fish is on the line, especially if I can tell it's less than 30 or 35 pounds, it's kind of over. Like, I want it in my hand because it doesn't count unless it's in my hand. It does not count unless it's in my hand. So I kind of want it for my statistics. I want it to go into the...
Can you touch it and then it pops off, or do you literally have to like hold?
My rule is, and I think your rule is probably the same. My rule is the only reason it counts is if you could kill it. So if you could have killed it, it counts.
Yeah.
So, with tarpon, you could kind of make the argument, I could have gaffed it when he grabbed the leader, so I kind of count leadering. That's how I get away with that. But with the striped bass, I have to grab its mouth. So, but it's kind of over at that point. It's the anticipation of what's going to happen, and there's some very specific times where this is sort of peak, and that's when surf fishing, I think, for me, is the most raw and feels the most exciting and is the most fulfilling. And that's when the conditions are right, really good. That doesn't mean they have to be crazy wind and waves and a nor'easter and, I'm screaming into the wind and all of that stuff. It could just be, it could be something as simple as this. It's really dark out. It's really quiet, and then all of a sudden I hear a couple of really big splashes, and I see some flashes, and I know that there's some big bait, and I'm like, oh my god, it's the time of year, oh god, and then the anticipation. But I'll tell you, the other time, and I write about this is sort of the point of the column, the other time I feel the most anticipation, which I'm losing, it's been tougher to hang on to, is when fishing is really good. And this may sound sort of no duh, but I'm not talking about when I'm bailing teen fish. I'm not talking about when I'm catching 20-pound fish. That's fun. In some ways, that's better almost because you can kind of enjoy the night and all of it, and you're kind of in it, and you're not, you're sort of taking everything in. But if I'm into a bite of 25, 30, 35-pound fish, the anticipation of the next fish is the best thing about catching striped bass. Because that next fish could be 60. And I know in your case, it could be 80. That's what you're thinking. And that I have not been able to recreate with any other kind of fish. That feeling. Even if you're losing quite a few of them, but maybe you've only landed 4 30s, let's say, but you've lost 3 or 4. And maybe you've had some smattering of smaller fish. That next fish could be a lifetime defining moment. Not just a fishing career defining, but a lifetime. The culmination of like this life well spent. And that anticipation, I've gotten it with tarpon, I won't lie. But it's the best part about striped bass for me. For sure.
Yeah, no, I that's that's probably the other, emotional side of it for me, for sure, that I get into that because I definitely have built up a narrative in my mind that if you're into X, that makes the potential Z. Yes. So, that's why I don't screw around with schoolies very often.
Yes.
Because it happens, sure, but in my mind which is based on my experiences, this class you're in, your realistic potential is that much better for that next step, that next step up, that, because you're not skipping 10 steps to get to that 50, 60, 70, 80 pound fish. You're 2 steps. Yes. So when I know I'm that close, that there's, and it's got to be more than one. Yes. For me, like you said, multiple, that's a key, because I look at it in that scenario, like if you're on schoolies, you could pull that one good one out of it. Okay, sure. But if you're on,
that's right,
several good, that great is probably there, that next class up. So, but on the flip side of it, I've had, this thought started to, let's say, cloud my thought process in there, is that in recent times, those experiences have been less frequent.
Exactly.
So I get fearful of is this the last one of these of the season?
Yes.
Whether it's the beginning, the middle, or towards the end of the season. And it's really weird. It's almost like it's like thinking about your mortality, totally different, obviously, but it's like the mortality of that potential of that season.
Yes.
Starts to weigh in. And then I get I get all nervous and lucky I'm fishing on my own, because sometimes I've stopped and had to physically shake it out of me. I'll stand there on a rock and wiggle it out, because, again, I'm working off of the experiences, what I've had in recent memory, and it hasn't been great. Whereas, if I was to think that would never even pop in my head 10 years ago. Yeah. I'd be oh no, we're going to have 5 more of these great bites. Who cares that it's the middle of October? The season is nowhere near done. The potential continues to go. And I feel now it's, it's kind of a scary thought. It gets a lot. Fishery is that's something.
This has become an existential surfcasting conversation, but
I can bring it back to some physical stuff. I have some thoughts there too. But
all right, so I'll let you do that. But I'll say this: it gets a lot scarier as you start to get older. Obviously, you're older than I am, and you start thinking about how many more new moon Mays do I have?
Yeah.
And then how many opportunities then does that mean? Oh, I've got 15, 20, 25 new moons of May. Great, that's no problem. How many of those are going to produce how many days? 1, 2. Well, it used to be 3, 4. Now it's like, oh shit, you can't. It gets very dark very quickly. Very quickly.
Oh yeah, you start thinking that you could be approaching single digits of those.
Yes,
that's some scary shit to start thinking about.
Yeah, it gets really scary really quickly. So, anyways, you had some good news to tell us. I think.
Physical, yes. One of the draws, we'll go physical here, that it's funny that you kind of related it to the small stream trout stuff, because there's a lot of strange parallels to the two. That, for me, one of the things with surf fishing for striped bass, the way I do it, the way you do it, a lot of the listeners do it, you are so self-contained, and I look at that too when I'm working a small stream.
Hey, Toby, you cut out for a second.
Everything that I have has to be with me.
You just cut out for a second.
Can
you just say that again?
Oh,
you just cut out for a second. It's okay. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was saying, so the connection to the small streams is it's so self-contained for me. When I'm in the surf, My surf bag is over my shoulder, connected to my belt. My pliers are on a lanyard. My boga's on a lanyard. The only thing I could let go and lose would be my rod and reel. When I'm in a small stream, I have my chest pack and all my stuff, and my clippers are my nippers are attached, and my net. So there's this physical connection that I feel to the process, and then it's the anticipation weighs in, but there's still a physical aspect of it. It's not like tuna fishing. All right, we're gonna go, in 2 hours of straight motoring at top speed, we're gonna arrive and then we're going to fish. You're still physically connected, but somebody brought me there. I didn't have to traverse physically at times. We were just saying how many, at times you might think I have X number of May new moons ahead of me. There's a spot I fished that I think of how many more years can my body physically get me there? Like with my knee problem, with the, age, everything, like those little things. So, that I'm still able to actually do it in the way that I'm doing it is kind of unique for some of the stuff some of the fishing that's out there. I mean, not trying to say, oh, it's so extreme, but to a degree it really is. The way that we're doing it.
It's rugged. And I mean, for sure.
I appreciate that, physical aspect of it. There's nothing else really that we could do like that.
Yeah. And I've done some other stuff I've done some high altitude stuff, and I've done some various other things, and I agree. As I said, this is taking it even one step further, but I'll say this. I say this all the time to my buddies. I don't think I've ever said this publicly. I think I probably said it in the seminar series, but I do ultra distance running, which if you don't know what that is, it's crazy people run more than marathon distances in the woods, basically. So 30 miles, 35 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles. People are crazy. I haven't done anything like that, but I've done some 30 to 40 mile races. I think surf casting is harder. I think surf casting is harder than ultra running, because ultra running, you do one thing, it's one time, you suck it up and deal. But surf casting is this relentless march where you might do 3 miles tonight, you might do 5 miles tomorrow night, you might do 0 miles, but then you got to stand in the same spot, and then it's no sleep. The mental aspect of it, got to figure this out, got to remember this. My hands are shaking, I can't tie the knot. It's harder. I think it's physically harder. I love that part of it. I mean, I love that part of it too. Yeah. But can I tell you the one thing that I want to share before we go? My friend told me that his favorite part of the release, shout out to Corey, is the release. He said that releasing the fish for him is by far the best part. And it's not about stewardship or, taking care of the fishery or any of that stuff. He said he just really likes the feeling of taking this thing, I'm going to use my own words, not his words, conquering it, catching this wild animal, but then watching it go back into the wild, just watching it go back into its own thing and disappear back into the nothing, where it's going to go live out its life and do all kinds of things and be wild. He really likes that. And that had an impact on me because I like to release fish for ethical reasons and the fishery and all that stuff. But I had never really thought of it through that lens, and I really like that. I like that he told me that.
It's funny you say. I can't help when I have the time to think about it as I'm releasing the fish, I can only connect in my mind alien abductions, and it's is that striped bass gonna go back and tell his friends you're never gonna believe what happened, and they're like, dude, it happens with people, alien abduction, it's the same process in my head. At times I'll think about that, and I literally will find myself chuckling whenever I let a fish go, and what is it? Obviously they're not going back talking to the friends in the school, but I wonder if there's an equivalent comprehension of what just occurred to the striped bass being caught, pulled out of the water, maybe a couple flashes going off, and then released back to go about the rest of its life, and maybe not ever encountering that again.
That's hilarious. That's amazing, Toby. I don't think we could end the podcast any better than that. That's the perfect ending. So I think that's where we gotta leave it, because that's absolutely fantastic. So we'll see you next time, Surfcast Podcast. This has been a weekly edition of the Surfcast Podcast. You can find out more about the podcast at surfcastpodcast.com, or definitely check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, at the Surfcast Podcast.